AITA for refusing to let my brother stay with me and my family while he deals with his legal issues, which led to a huge family conflict. I, 38F, have a younger brother, Mark, 35M, who has always been somewhat reckless. Over the past several years, he's had multiple run-ins with the law, primarily minor offenses, but lately, things have escalated. He recently got into serious legal trouble involving financial fraud at his workplace. He's been released on bail while his case proceeds, and he claims he has nowhere to stay during this period. Naturally, he called me asking if he could live with me and my family for the foreseeable future. I was immediately conflicted. My husband, Jason, 40M, and I have 2 children, ages 8 and 5, and we maintain a very structured household. My children thrive on routine, and we have a stable home environment we work hard to maintain. Inviting Mark to stay would disrupt that stability and also create a lot of stress for my family because of his history of erratic behavior and inability to follow rules. I explained this to Mark and told him that I could not have him move in. I suggested alternatives, short-term rental options, staying with friends, or even helping him find a local halfway house or legal shelter that could accommodate him safely. I also offered to help financially if needed for rent or bills, and I said I would accompany him to court appointments. I wanted to support him without endangering my family or turning my home into a stressful environment. Mark became furious. He accused me of being cold and selfish, saying that families should support each other in times of crisis. He told me that if I didn't let him stay, it would mean I didn't care about him and that I was abandoning him when he needed help most. I reminded him that supporting him does not mean putting my family at risk and that my priority had to be the well-being of my husband and children. The situation escalated when Mark called our parents. They immediately sided with him, saying that I should allow him to stay and that my refusal was cruel and unkind. I tried to explain that I was not refusing to help. I was offering alternative ways to assist him, including financial support and transportation, but they were unsatisfied. Our parents accused me of prioritizing my own comfort over family, and the conversation ended in shouting and threats to reconsider my role in the family if I didn't help Mark. Jason and I discussed it extensively. He agreed that having Mark stay would be disruptive, stressful, and potentially unsafe given the circumstances. He emphasized that Mark had a history of ignoring boundaries and could cause tension or conflict in our household. We decided to stand firm, but we knew this would create a rift with our family. The breaking point came during a family dinner. Mark arrived uninvited, demanding to speak with me and insisting that I let him stay. When I refused, he started yelling, saying that I was selfish, uncaring, and that I had always been the favorite child, showing favoritism in ways that undermined him. Our parents joined in, demanding that I allow him to stay and accusing me of destroying family unity. I tried to remain calm and offered again to help in practical ways that didn't involve living arrangements, but they refused to listen. Some family members attempted to mediate, suggesting compromises such as letting Mark stay temporarily or in a separate room. But I explained that even a temporary arrangement would create stress for my children and put them at risk of exposure to conflict. I also worried about the potential legal consequences if Mark were to engage in problematic behavior while living in my home. I felt it was my responsibility to maintain a safe environment for my family above all else. Mark left angrily and has since refused to speak to me except through passive-aggressive texts or social media posts. Our parents are upset with me and have made repeated comments about my lack of compassion and failure to support family in need. Other relatives are divided. Some believe I acted responsibly and protected my household, while others argue I should have sacrificed for family unity. I feel guilty because I genuinely want to help Mark, but I also know that allowing him to stay would be irresponsible and could have serious consequences for my children, household, and marriage. I have offered every form of support I can without putting my family at risk, but he and some relatives interpret that as coldness. I've considered allowing a very short-term stay under strict conditions, but I know from past experiences that Mark does not respect boundaries and that even a single night could lead to chaos. I also worry about setting a precedent where he expects to disrupt my household whenever he has trouble. I have tried to explain this calmly, but no one seems willing to understand. Our family gatherings are now tense. Conversations inevitably turn to this topic, and I feel like my judgment and integrity are being questioned. Mark continues to frame me as selfish, and my parents hint that I have failed as a sister. I want to maintain relationships and support him responsibly, but I also feel that my first duty is to protect my household and my children. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother stay with my family while he deals with his legal issues, even though it caused a massive family conflict and made him and our parents upset. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for potentially ruining my best friend's wedding by being honest about my feelings. I, 28F, have been best friends with Emily, 28F, since college. We met during our sophomore year and became inseparable, sharing everything from late-night study sessions to heartbreaks and career frustrations. Over the years, our friendship evolved into a bond I've always considered unbreakable. We've been through almost every milestone together, and we were each other's go-to person for advice and support. Last year, Emily got engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Mark, 30M. I was thrilled for her, truly. Mark is a great guy, responsible, kind, and loving. I've always liked him and never felt any reason to distrust him. When she asked me to be her maid of honor, I was honored and immediately started helping with wedding planning. The problem started a few months ago when Emily asked me to help choose bridesmaids' dresses. We went to a few stores and tried on some options, but nothing seemed perfect. During one of these trips, I noticed a conversation Emily was having with her younger sister, Rachel, 24F, who is also a bridesmaid. Emily was venting quietly about how stressed she was about the wedding and how she sometimes doubted her choice to marry Mark. She said, "I love him, but sometimes I feel like I don't really know him. There are parts of him I don't understand, and I'm scared I might be missing something." I didn't say anything at the time, thinking it was just normal pre-wedding anxiety. But I couldn't shake it off. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing small things about Mark that seemed off. He would make vague promises to Emily that he didn't follow through on, brush off her opinions in group conversations, and occasionally make snide remarks about how she spends money or handles her time. Nothing huge on its own, but together it started to paint a picture that made me uncomfortable. About a month ago, Emily confided in me that she was nervous about the wedding. She was worried she was marrying someone who might not fully respect her, someone whose charming exterior hid certain controlling tendencies. I didn't want to scare her unnecessarily, but I felt like I couldn't stay silent. I started noticing how Mark often subtly criticized her in front of his friends or manipulated situations, so he came out looking better. One instance in particular was when we all went to a dinner with mutual friends. Emily suggested a restaurant she loved, but Mark complained about the menu and made Emily look indecisive in front of everyone, even though she had offered to let him choose. Later, he joked that she was too sensitive for caring about it. I tried to weigh my options. On one hand, I didn't want to jeopardize my best friend's happiness with potential paranoia. On the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was entering a marriage with someone who didn't treat her as an equal. After a lot of sleepless nights, I decided I needed to tell her honestly what I had observed. I planned to approach it gently, emphasizing that these were my observations, not accusations, and that ultimately, it was her choice. I invited Emily for coffee and told her everything. I recounted specific instances where Mark had dismissed her opinions, subtly belittled her in social situations, or manipulated outcomes to favor himself. I tried to stay calm and non-judgmental, but I could see her face change as I spoke. She went from curious to visibly upset, tears welling up. She said, "I never noticed these things, at least not clearly. I thought I was imagining it sometimes, but now I don't know what to think." After our talk, Emily spent the next few days avoiding me. She started questioning everything, including our friendship, asking herself why I would bring these things up now, so close to the wedding. Mark, meanwhile, found out we had talked and confronted me. He said I was trying to sabotage their relationship, that I had no right to interfere, and that I was overstepping as a friend. He also suggested that I was jealous of their relationship because I didn't have a partner, which I found both hurtful and irrelevant. I tried explaining that my intention was never to ruin her happiness, but to help her see things she might be overlooking. I reminded him that Emily was an adult and capable of making her own decisions. He accused me of trying to control her choices, and Emily began to feel conflicted between defending me and defending her fiancé. A few days later, Emily called me. She sounded upset but calmer. She said she appreciated my honesty, but also felt that bringing up my concerns as close to the wedding was too much and that she needed space. She said she was already committed to marrying Mark and that now she was questioning not just her fiancé, but also whether she could trust me. It hurt to hear that because my entire intention was to protect her, not manipulate her. The rest of the wedding planning has been tense. Emily still includes me in certain tasks, but keeps conversations very formal. Mark is cordial, but clearly still suspicious of my motives. Mutual friends are picking up on the strain, and some have even expressed that I might have been too blunt and that I should have kept quiet. I feel guilty that my actions may have introduced doubt into her relationship, but I also feel guilty at the thought of staying silent and letting her ignore red flags. I've considered apologizing, but I'm afraid it might make her feel I'm retracting my honesty or that I wasn't sincere. I'm stuck in this limbo where I feel like I've done the morally right thing by being honest, but socially, it seems to have backfired. I can't tell if I've ruined my friendship or if I was wrong to intervene. So, AITA for being honest with my best friend about my concerns regarding her fiancé, even though it has caused tension and distress this close to her wedding. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. I, 28F, have always been close to my older sister, Emily, 32F. We grew up in a small town, and despite some typical sibling rivalry, we've generally been supportive of each other. When Emily got engaged last year, I was initially thrilled. I imagined helping her plan the wedding, going dress shopping, and sharing in her excitement. Things were going smoothly until she introduced me to her fiancé, Mark, 34M. From the moment I met him, I felt uncomfortable. Mark has a very commanding personality, and while some people might call it confident, I find it overbearing and manipulative. During the first family dinner where he was present, he dominated every conversation, interrupted multiple people, and even subtly dismissed my opinions. I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was just first meeting nerves, but the feeling only intensified over time. The real problem started when Emily and I began discussing wedding plans. She asked for my opinion on a few details, like the venue and the color palette. Every suggestion I made was either ignored or later presented back to me as if she had come up with it herself. It became clear that Mark had a huge influence over her decisions, often overriding her initial ideas. I tried to stay neutral at first, telling myself it wasn't my wedding and that Emily would make her own choices in the end. Then came the wedding guest list. Emily told me she wanted to keep it small and intimate, but Mark insisted on inviting his extended family and business colleagues, which doubled the expected number of guests. He also pressured her into having a live band instead of a DJ, even though she had always wanted a DJ. I felt frustrated because it seemed like Emily's voice was being drowned out and Mark's preferences were taking priority at every turn. The breaking point came 2 months ago when Emily asked me to help with seating arrangements. I noticed that Mark had created a separate VIP section for his friends and colleagues and had excluded several of Emily's close friends and relatives from prime seating. When I voiced my concern, Mark laughed it off, saying it was how weddings work and that Emily would thank him later. Emily didn't defend my point and just shrugged, clearly conflicted. I felt uneasy and powerless, and it started to make me question whether I could be happy at the wedding at all. Around this time, Mark also started making passive-aggressive comments about me. For example, he would say things like, "I guess not everyone is comfortable with big celebrations," whenever I expressed a minor disagreement about decor or timing. He has a habit of twisting conversations to make it seem like I'm the difficult one, and it's been mentally exhausting. Emily has noticed some of this behavior, but she dismisses it as him joking or being protective of her. I tried talking to her about it, expressing my concern about his influence and the way he treats others, but she became defensive and accused me of being judgmental and trying to sabotage her happiness. Last month, I had an unpleasant encounter with Mark at a dress fitting. He criticized my outfit choice in front of the store staff, saying it was too casual for a wedding of this caliber. I tried to laugh it off, but it felt humiliating. Later, when I mentioned it to Emily, she told me I was overreacting and that Mark was only trying to help. I realized that no matter what I said, Emily would side with him. After that, I started reconsidering my role in the wedding. I realized that attending might mean tolerating Mark's behavior for hours, possibly being humiliated again, and not feeling comfortable supporting Emily in the way I wanted. I tried to come up with a compromise, like only attending the ceremony and skipping the reception, but Emily insisted it would be weird if I only showed up for part of the event. 2 weeks ago, I finally told Emily that I could not attend the wedding. I explained that I couldn't be around Mark, without feeling anxious, and that I didn't want to be part of the celebration, where Emily's voice seemed completely overshadowed. I tried to frame it in a way that emphasized my love for her, and that this was about protecting my own mental health, not trying to ruin her day. She cried and called me selfish, saying I was overreacting and that I would regret it. Our parents also got involved, telling me that families should support each other and that weddings are one of the few times that everyone should come together. Since then, I've received messages from relatives and friends asking why I'm not attending. I explain my reasons, and some people understand, but others think I'm being dramatic or unreasonable. Emily has not spoken to me directly since our conversation, though she has posted about wedding preparations on social media. I keep feeling guilty because I don't want to hurt her, but at the same time, I know that being at the wedding would be emotionally exhausting and possibly damaging to my relationship with her in the long run. I understand that weddings are important family events and that most people would choose to attend despite personal differences, but I also feel like this situation is unique. I am not opposed to Emily marrying Mark in general. I just cannot support or be present at a celebration where his behavior is likely to dominate and make me uncomfortable. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I cannot tolerate her fiancé's behavior, even though it might upset her and the rest of the family. I have tried to explain my perspective calmly, tried partial compromises, and even considered attending under protest, but nothing seems to make it better. I just feel that prioritizing my mental health and boundaries is necessary, even if it costs me being part of one of my sister's biggest life events. I don't want this to create a permanent rift, but I also cannot ignore how toxic I find the interactions with Mark. I'm torn between family loyalty and self-preservation. Has anyone experienced something similar? How can I navigate this without losing my sister entirely? Or am I truly being selfish in this situation? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé plan my wedding? So, I, 29F, have been with my fiancé, Mark, 31M, for 6 years. We met in college and have been inseparable ever since. Our relationship has been steady, with its usual ups and downs, but we always communicate well and respect each other's boundaries. About a year ago, Mark proposed during a surprise weekend getaway to the mountains. I was over the moon, of course, and we immediately started talking about what kind of wedding we wanted. Here's the catch. I have a very clear vision for my wedding. I've always dreamed of an intimate ceremony with close family and friends, a rustic chic theme, soft pastels, and outdoor floral arrangements. Mark is very easygoing, so he's happy to go along with my vision. However, my sister, Emily, 27F, recently got engaged to her fiancé, Tom, 30M, and that's where the trouble began. Emily and I have always had a somewhat complicated relationship. We're close, but we also have a lot of unspoken competition, mostly because our parents always compared us growing up. Emily is incredibly controlling and likes to be the center of attention. Tom is very agreeable and tends to defer to Emily on most things, which has created a dynamic where Emily's preferences dominate their joint decisions. I've noticed this before in minor ways, like when planning their engagement party, she subtly forced a specific caterer and even chose the music playlist. I brushed it off then, thinking it was normal excitement. Fast forward to 2 months after Mark proposed. Emily calls me out of the blue. She sounds very excited, but also a little nervous. She says she has a great idea for my wedding. I was caught off guard, but tried to be polite and listen. Emily explained that she and Tom had experience planning events, and they thought they could help me organize my wedding. She said Tom is a logistics wizard and has fantastic ideas for decoration, seating, and the flow of the ceremony. Emily went on to say that she would handle all the planning so I could relax and enjoy my engagement period without stress. At first, I laughed nervously because I assumed she was joking. I told her that while I appreciated the offer, Mark and I had already started brainstorming ideas and wanted to handle the wedding ourselves. Emily's tone shifted immediately. She sounded offended, saying that I was being ungrateful and that she and Tom had so much experience and that it would be selfish not to take their help. She kept insisting that I wouldn't be able to handle the stress and that I'd regret not letting her plan it. She also said she had contacts for everything from florists to photographers and that I would save so much money if I let her take over. I calmly explained that Mark and I wanted the wedding to reflect our personalities, not hers, and that it was important for us to make decisions ourselves. Emily's response was a mixture of guilt-tripping and veiled threats. She said that if I refused her help, it would ruin our relationship and that I'd regret hurting her feelings on what should be a joyful occasion. I tried to reassure her that our relationship was important to me, but I felt increasingly frustrated and anxious. Over the next few weeks, Emily didn't respect my boundaries. She showed up at our apartment unannounced with wedding magazines, dropped off color swatches, and even emailed our guest list, asking why certain people weren't included. Every time I reminded her politely that Mark and I were handling the wedding, she would reply with passive-aggressive comments like, "I just want what's best for you," or, "It's your wedding, but it could be so much better if you listened." Mark suggested that we set stricter boundaries, but I was hesitant because I didn't want to escalate the tension before the wedding. Things came to a head last week. I had just booked our venue, a small outdoor garden that fits 80 guests, and Emily found out. She texted me a long message saying that the venue was too small, that the lighting was all wrong, and that I definitely needed a planner who knew what they were doing. Then she added, "I really don't understand why you won't let Tom and me help. We just want to make sure it's perfect." I snapped. I wrote back, clearly stating that I did not want her or Tom involved in the planning at all. I told her that our wedding was personal to Mark and me, and we wanted to make all the decisions ourselves. I said that if she continued to interfere, we would have to reconsider her role in the wedding entirely. Emily responded with a long voicemail, crying and accusing me of being selfish, immature, and heartless. She said I had no idea how lucky I am to have her expertise and that I was throwing away a relationship with my sister over a party. After this, I told Mark everything, and we agreed that we would politely but firmly enforce our boundaries. We're planning to tell Emily that if she cannot respect our wishes, she will not have a significant role in the wedding beyond attending as a guest. Mark also suggested that we hire an independent wedding planner if necessary, so Emily's interference isn't an issue. Since then, our parents have gotten involved. They are siding with Emily, saying that I should consider her feelings and let her do something nice for her sister. I tried explaining that letting her plan the wedding isn't nice for me. It's stressful and intrusive, but they insist on being unreasonable. Now, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells with everyone. I love my sister, but I also feel like it's my wedding, not hers. I want to enjoy the engagement without constant anxiety or guilt tripping. I've even considered shortening the guest list to avoid conflicts, but that feels extreme. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister and her fiancé plan my wedding? Am I being too rigid? Or is it really unreasonable to insist on handling my own wedding planning? I'm honestly torn because I don't want to damage my relationship with Emily, but I also can't compromise my vision for my wedding. AITA for refusing to let my father's new partner handle our family finances, which led to a massive family fight. I, 36F, have always been very close to my father, Richard, 65M. He's always been independent, But over the last few years, he started dating someone new, a woman named Claire, 58F. Claire is intelligent and charismatic, but also extremely controlling and opinionated, particularly about money. I have always helped my father with financial planning, managing bills, and coordinating investments. I have extensive experience in finance, and over the years, he has relied on me for advice and assistance. Things were fine for a while, but Claire quickly began to assert herself in areas she had no experience in. She insisted on reviewing my father's spending, questioned his investment decisions, and suggested changes to his budget without understanding the long-term implications. At first, I tried to be polite and offer guidance. I explained that I was happy to teach her how his finances work and show her the reasoning behind decisions. But she refused to listen, insisting she knew what was best. The situation escalated last month when my father mentioned that he wanted to adjust some of his investment accounts. Claire immediately intervened, demanding that she should make decisions about his finances from now on. I tried to calmly explain that major financial decisions, particularly investments, required knowledge of his portfolio, risk tolerance, and long-term plans, all of which I had been managing responsibly. Claire argued that I was controlling and that my father was being manipulated by me. Things became tense when my father asked me to review a joint retirement account that Claire had suggested he use to fund a new business venture she wanted to start. I examined the plan and realized it was extremely risky and could result in significant financial loss for my father. I told him that I could not approve the plan and that it would be irresponsible to follow Claire's suggestions. Claire immediately became defensive and accused me of undermining her and trying to take control. She also started telling my father that I was overstepping my role and that he should trust her instead. The conflict came to a head at a family dinner. Claire confronted me directly, saying that I was controlling, disrespectful, and trying to interfere with her relationship with my father. She claimed that I was trying to make my father dependent on me and suggested that my actions were manipulative. I calmly responded that my only concern was protecting my father's financial security and that I was acting in his best interests. She shouted that I had no right to dictate how my father spends or invests his money, despite the fact that she had no experience managing finances. My father became visibly stressed and tried to mediate, but Claire continued yelling, insisting that I was driving a wedge between her and him. My mother, who was divorced from my father but still close with the family, also became involved. She supported me, saying that Claire had no background or understanding of how my father's finances worked and that interfering could be dangerous. Claire accused her of being biased and trying to sabotage her influence over my father. Since then, the family has been divided. Some relatives think I was right to intervene, pointing out Claire's lack of experience and the potential risks to my father. Others argue that I should have stepped aside and let him make his own decisions, even if they seemed risky. Claire has refused to speak to me directly and communicates through my father or mutual friends, often making passive-aggressive remarks and trying to paint me as controlling. My father, while grateful for my guidance, is frustrated that the conflict has escalated and that our family dynamics have been disrupted. I have tried to offer compromise. I suggested that Claire could be involved in budgeting and day-to-day spending where there was little risk, but that I would retain control over investments and major financial decisions. She rejected this, saying that it was disrespectful and that she deserved full control. I also offered to provide her with resources and explanations so she could understand the implications of her suggestions, but she refused to learn or consult me. I feel frustrated because I was trying to act responsibly and protect my father from potential financial harm, but my actions have been interpreted as controlling or manipulative. I also worry about long-term family tension and how this will affect holidays, gatherings, and my father's relationship with both of us. Claire continues to criticize me in conversations with other relatives, and it has become difficult to navigate family events without conflict arising. I've considered whether I could have handled the situation differently. I could have tried to step back completely, but I knew that allowing her to make uninformed financial decisions could have severe consequences for my father. I also tried repeatedly to communicate calmly and offer alternative ways for her to be involved, but she refused to compromise. I feel that prioritizing my father's well-being and financial security was the right choice, even if it caused conflict. So, AITA for refusing to let my father's new partner control his finances, even though it led to a massive family fight and strained relationships with several relatives. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she accused me of ruining her life. I, 28F, have always been close to my family, especially my older sister, Clara, 32F. Growing up, we had our fair share of fights, like any siblings, but overall we were very supportive of each other. I've always tried to be there for her, and I genuinely thought we had a solid relationship. But recently, things have gone completely sideways, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Clara got engaged last year to her fiancé, Alex, 34M, and the planning started almost immediately. From the beginning, I was excited to help her, offer suggestions, and be part of her big day. However, it became apparent that the wedding wasn't going to be a collaborative family event. Clara has always been a control freak, but with this wedding, she turned it up to 11. Every minor decision was micromanaged. Every suggestion I made was either ignored or met with criticism, and Alex seemed to just follow her lead, mostly staying quiet. It all came to a head about 3 months before the wedding. I was visiting Clara and Alex at their apartment to help with some seating arrangements and to look over the catering options. I casually mentioned that some of the guests who were being invited were from my circle of friends, and I suggested maybe inviting a few more mutual friends who Clara hadn't considered. She immediately went off, accusing me of trying to turn her wedding into my party. I laughed it off at first, thinking she was just stressed, but the tension didn't end there. For the next hour, she grilled me about every suggestion I made, nitpicking it to the point where I just wanted to leave. A few weeks later, the final straw happened. Clara asked me to be the maid of honor. I was thrilled at first, but soon realized that it came with a lot of expectations. She made it clear that I was to follow her instructions to the letter and that my opinions were irrelevant. I initially agreed because I wanted to support her, but as planning progressed, I began to feel like I was more of an employee than a sister. I was responsible for coordinating all the pre-wedding events, contacting vendors, and handling small emergencies that came up, all while receiving zero acknowledgement or gratitude. Every time I made a decision without her explicit approval, she would call me and yell, saying I was making her life miserable. The breaking point happened 2 weeks ago. Clara had sent me a draft of the bridesmaids' dresses she wanted, asking for my feedback. I tried to be honest, but gentle, suggesting a different color that I thought would complement the theme better. She immediately exploded, accusing me of trying to ruin everything and showing up her choices. She sent me a series of messages, calling me selfish, manipulative, and saying that I had always tried to take over her life. I tried to respond calmly, saying I was just offering a suggestion, not trying to take control, but she blocked me on all social media and refused to answer my calls. At this point, I was stunned. I couldn't understand why a simple suggestion had led to such an extreme reaction. I reached out to my parents, hoping they could mediate. They tried, but Clara was adamant that she didn't want me at the wedding unless I apologized for trying to ruin her happiness. I was confused and hurt because, in my eyes, I hadn't done anything wrong. I had been supportive, involved, and loving, yet she was treating me like I was the villain in her story. After a lot of reflection, I decided I couldn't attend the wedding. I sent Clara a message explaining that I loved her and wanted her to be happy, but I couldn't be around people who accused me of trying to ruin her life when I had only ever tried to help. I told her that I hoped she would understand one day and that I wished her and Alex the best. My parents begged me to reconsider, but I felt that my mental health had to come first. Clara responded by sending me a long, bitter message calling me a toxic sibling and saying that she was ashamed to have me as her sister. She also said that my absence would ruin the wedding, and she implied that I was selfish for not putting her happiness above my feelings. I haven't responded because I honestly don't know what to say. I'm heartbroken because I wanted to be part of her special day, but I also can't be treated like an enemy in my own family. Now, other relatives are calling me and asking me to make peace before the wedding. My parents are disappointed, but supportive of my decision. Friends are divided. Some say I should have swallowed my pride, while others say I was completely justified. I'm left feeling guilty, but I also feel like I have boundaries for a reason. The wedding is in 2 weeks, and I haven't spoken to Clara directly since she blocked me. I don't know what the fallout will be after the wedding, but I also can't see myself attending after how she treated me. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she accused me of trying to ruin her life when all I did was offer my opinion and help. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disowned me for not supporting her career choice. I, 28F, have always been close with my sister, Emma, 30F. We grew up in a small town, and while our interests were different, we always had a bond. I'm more academically inclined and work in a research lab, while she's very creative and always dreamed of a career in music. Over the years, I've supported her passions, went to her small gigs, and even helped her with promotional work whenever I could. I have never judged her career path, even though our parents frequently express concern about her instability as a musician. About a year ago, Emma started dating someone new, Mark, 32M, a record producer. At first, I was happy for her, but soon I noticed she was changing. Mark is very controlling and has strong opinions about everyone around him, including me. He started making subtle comments about my career being boring and about my lifestyle being too structured. At first, I brushed it off as typical brother-in-law-to-be banter, but it started escalating. Things came to a head when Emma was offered an opportunity to move abroad for a music project. This was a huge chance for her career, but it came with a lot of financial instability. I expressed concern about whether she had considered all aspects: health insurance, cost of living, taxes, and long-term planning. I didn't tell her she shouldn't go, just that she should plan carefully. Mark immediately jumped on me. He started texting me daily, calling me overprotective, judgmental, and basically undermining everything I said. Emma defended him at first, saying I was overreacting, but eventually she stopped answering my messages for weeks. Finally, she called me and said that if I truly loved her, I would support her decision without questioning it. I told her I did love her, but that blind support felt dangerous and dishonest. That was the last conversation we had before she stopped contacting me entirely. Fast forward to now, Emma is getting married in a destination wedding abroad. I was initially invited because she wanted family there, but she recently sent me a very curt message saying I was no longer welcome. According to her, my constant criticism and lack of faith in her choices make me a toxic presence. She told me I'm not allowed to attend and that she does not consider me family anymore. Naturally, this hurt me deeply. I've spent my whole life supporting her, and she's cut me out over what I consider a difference of perspective, not a personal attack. I reached out one last time to try to reconcile, but she told me that it's too late and any attempt to communicate would be seen as manipulation. She also mentioned that Mark specifically requested I be removed from the guest list. I decided to respect her wishes and not attempt to crash the wedding or force my presence. Instead, I sent a card with a note expressing my love and best wishes for her future and left it at that. Since then, our family has been split. Some of our relatives think I overstepped by questioning her decision, while others understand that I was just being cautious and care about her well-being. I personally feel that family shouldn't be conditional on agreement, but I can't help but feel like my presence would be unwelcome and could create more drama if I attended. I'm struggling with guilt and sadness. I miss my sister and all the small rituals we used to share, but I also feel like I can't just ignore my own values to appease her and Mark. I haven't spoken to her in months, and every social media post about wedding planning or engagement photos reminds me of what used to be a close relationship. I sometimes think maybe I should have kept my concerns to myself entirely, but at the same time, I feel that not speaking up would have been dishonest and might have caused her bigger problems down the line. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she essentially disowned me over a difference in perspective. About her career and life choices, I feel like I'm caught between respecting her autonomy and maintaining my own principles, and I'm not sure if I acted selfishly or reasonably. My family keeps asking me to just go and smile, but I feel like it would be betraying myself and potentially create more harm than good. I've spent weeks debating whether I should just send a last message to try and reconcile, even if it's rejected, but part of me worries that it will just give her ammunition to further paint me as controlling or manipulative. I also worry about my parents, who are torn between wanting to support both daughters and not make Emma angrier. Everyone keeps telling me time heals everything, but I feel like time may not heal something if one side refuses to engage. I love my sister, and I would never want to hurt her intentionally, but I also believe that unconditional support doesn't mean unconditional agreement. If anything, I thought careful advice from a loved one should be considered a form of support. The wedding is in a few months, and I haven't made any plans to go. I don't even know if sending a gift or card is enough. I don't know if I'm being too rigid, or if I should make one more effort to attend despite being unwelcome. Every choice I make seems wrong either way. Either I betray my principles, or I betray my relationship with my sister. The tension and loss of connection is eating at me every day. I just want to understand if I'm truly in the wrong for standing firm on my boundaries and not attending a wedding where I am clearly not welcome. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with us during a financial crisis, which led to a huge family fight. I, 37F, have a younger sister, Megan, 30F, who has always struggled financially. She has a decent job, but is terrible at budgeting, and over the years, she's accumulated a significant amount of debt. She also has a history of dating men who exacerbate her financial instability. Recently, she began dating someone new, Ryan, 32M, who has been unemployed for several months and relies heavily on Megan for money and support. I've met Ryan a few times, and while he's polite, I've noticed he lacks ambition and tends to avoid responsibility. Last month, Megan called me in a panic. She and Ryan had run out of money for rent and utilities, and their landlord had threatened eviction. Megan asked if Ryan could move in with me and my family temporarily while they figured things out. I have a husband, Daniel, 38M, and 2 children, ages 7 and 4, and we have a structured household that relies on routines for our children and work schedules. I immediately felt uncomfortable with the idea. I told Megan that I could not allow Ryan to move in. I explained that having an adult who is unemployed, financially dependent, and with a history of irresponsibility would create major stress and disruption in our household. I offered to help in other ways. I could assist with finding temporary accommodations, help pay part of a short-term rental, provide meals if needed, and even help them create a budget plan to get back on their feet. Megan was frustrated and insisted that moving him in would be the fastest way to solve the immediate crisis. The conversation quickly escalated. Megan accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, claiming that family should help each other unconditionally. She said that refusing to let Ryan stay meant that I didn't care about her struggles and that I was choosing comfort over family. I reminded her that supporting her does not mean creating chaos for my children or jeopardizing my household, and that there are many ways to offer help without allowing someone to live rent-free indefinitely. Megan then called her parents. They immediately took her side, saying that I should allow Ryan to stay and that my refusal was cruel. I tried to explain my reasoning calmly. My family has routines that need to be maintained, my children's well-being is my priority, and having Ryan live with us temporarily could create conflict and stress. My parents accused me of being overreactive and suggested that I was making everything about myself instead of helping family in need. The situation came to a head during a family gathering. Megan, Ryan, and our parents confronted me directly. Megan insisted that I was being heartless. Ryan claimed I was judgmental, and my parents said I was refusing to help someone in crisis. I explained that I was not refusing to help, but I had to do so in a way that protected my household. I also reminded them that my previous attempts to help, offering financial guidance, assisting with rental applications, and budgeting support, had been ignored. The argument escalated into shouting. Megan accused me of controlling her life and not respecting her choices, while Ryan implied that I was selfish and that I only cared about appearances. My parents continued to pressure me, saying that family loyalty requires sacrifice and that I was failing to step up when needed. Some relatives tried to mediate, but Ryan insisted he would not leave, and Megan continued to pressure me emotionally, claiming she had nowhere else to turn. After the confrontation, Megan and Ryan left in anger. Our parents were visibly upset and continued to criticize me over the following weeks. Some extended family members sided with me, understanding that having an adult with no income move into a household with young children could create significant stress and disruption. Others agreed with Megan, suggesting I should have just let it happen to keep peace and support. Family. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I am confident that I acted responsibly by prioritizing my children and household stability. Allowing Ryan to move in would have been disruptive, potentially unsafe emotionally, and could have set a precedent where family members feel entitled to overstay or disregard boundaries. On the other hand, I feel guilty about the rift this has caused with Megan and our parents, who are upset and seem to think I was unkind. I have considered alternative approaches, such as offering to house Ryan for one night or providing more direct financial assistance. But I know from past experiences that even temporary stays can lead to tension, and Ryan has not demonstrated responsibility. I also tried repeatedly to offer other forms of help, all of which were rejected. The tension has affected family gatherings. Holidays and birthdays are awkward because Megan and Ryan avoid me. Our parents continue to comment about my lack of compassion, and other relatives seem unsure whose side to take. I have tried to focus on constructive support for Megan without compromising my household, but my actions are still interpreted as cold or selfish. I know I did what I felt was right to protect my family, but I also worry that my refusal has damaged relationships permanently. I want to help my sister, but I cannot allow her choices to disrupt the stability and well-being of my home. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with me and my family during their financial crisis, even though it led to a massive family fight and upset our parents. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for not letting my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he insulted my cooking. I, 32F, have a sister, Emma, 29F, who has been dating her fiancé, Derek, 30M, for about 3 years. Our relationship has always been a bit complicated. Emma and I were close as kids, but as we grew older, our personalities started clashing. I'm very particular and organized, while Emma is more spontaneous and laid back. That said, we usually manage to maintain a decent sibling relationship, and I care about her a lot. A few months ago, Emma and Derek got engaged. I was genuinely happy for her, though Derek has always rubbed me the wrong way. He has a habit of making snide comments under the guise of jokes, and while Emma laughs them off, I often find them offensive. I try to stay polite, but I'm not someone who can overlook what I consider disrespectful behavior. Recently, I bought a house with my partner, Mark, 34M. It's a small but comfortable place, and we take pride in keeping it tidy and making it a welcoming environment for guests. A couple of weekends ago, Emma called me asking if Derek could stay at our place for a few nights because they were having renovations at their apartment. She framed it as a temporary thing, just a couple of nights, and I said I'd think about it. I told her I needed to check with Mark first, and also I needed to know what the plans were for meals and general expectations. Mark and I discussed it and eventually agreed that it could work as long as Derek was respectful of our home and helped out a little. I also mentioned that since we would all be sharing meals, Derek needed to be open to what we prepared and not complain. Emma seemed fine with that over the phone. When they arrived, I was trying to be welcoming. I had prepared a few meals in advance, thinking about what would be easy and convenient for everyone. The first evening was fine, although Derek made a couple of jokes about the food. They were slightly mocking, but I brushed them off. I didn't want to start a fight on the first night. The second day, I made a homemade pasta dish with a tomato cream sauce. Derek took one bite and immediately made a face. He said loudly, "I didn't know people actually eat this. Are you sure you didn't overcook it or something?" I was stunned. I tried to laugh it off and said it was just a homemade sauce, a bit different from what you get in restaurants. But he continued, "Honestly, I can't eat this." It's too bland, and the sauce is weird. You really should stick to normal recipes. This is barely edible. I felt humiliated. Not only was he insulting my cooking in front of Emma, but he was doing it in a way that felt designed to embarrass me. I calmly told him that I wasn't going to tolerate him speaking to me that way, and suggested he eat what he could or skip the meal. Emma tried to intervene, saying he was just joking, but Derek laughed and said, "Come on, she's cooking, not a professional chef." It's fine to point it out. The rest of the day was tense. I kept my distance, and Derek made a few more passive-aggressive comments like, "I guess this house is nice enough, though a bit small for guests." I was done trying to be polite. I sat down with Mark and said that I couldn't have someone in my house who was openly insulting me, and that Emma needed to take responsibility for her fiancé's behavior. When Emma got home from work, I told her calmly but firmly that Derek couldn't stay with us anymore. She was shocked and upset, saying I was overreacting and that Derek didn't mean anything by it. She argued that it was just his sense of humor, and she felt I was being unfair. I explained that making someone feel humiliated in their own home is not a joke, and I wasn't willing to have him stay any longer under those conditions. Emma was visibly frustrated and accused me of being controlling. She said she expected me to be more accommodating since they were family, and that I was letting a personal disagreement ruin the situation. I told her I was more than willing to help them find a hotel or another temporary place to stay, but my house isn't a place where someone can mock me openly and expect me to just ignore it. Derek, meanwhile, texted me later saying I was too sensitive and that I shouldn't take a joke so seriously. He claimed he had done nothing wrong and that Emma was supposed to keep me from getting upset. I did not respond. Since then, Emma has been giving me the silent treatment and making snide remarks when we talk. Our parents and a few mutual friends have weighed in, and the opinions are split. Some people say I overreacted and should have let it slide, while others say Derek was rude and I was justified in setting boundaries. I've been feeling guilty because I don't want to damage my relationship with Emma, but at the same time, I feel strongly that I have the right to protect my home and myself from disrespect. I've offered alternatives and solutions, but Emma refuses to acknowledge Derek's behavior as inappropriate. So, AITA for kicking Derek out after he insulted my cooking and made me feel humiliated in my own home? I wonder if I'm being too strict or if it's reasonable to stand firm about boundaries in my own house. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after years of family tension. I, 29F, had a complicated relationship with my family, and it all comes to a head with my brother's, 32M, upcoming wedding. I've been debating whether I'm overreacting, and I need some perspective. A little background: my parents are divorced. My dad remarried when I was 15, and his new wife has always been difficult. My mom has always been very involved in my life, sometimes overbearing, but in a loving way. I have two siblings, my older brother, who is the groom in question, and a younger sister, 25F. My relationship with my brother has been strained for years due to what I perceive as favoritism from our parents and a sense that he never really took my feelings seriously. When we were kids, he would get away with practically everything. Our parents often overlooked his misbehavior because he was the eldest and responsible one, while I got in trouble for much smaller things. I felt invisible in the family dynamic, like nothing I did mattered unless it was exceptional. As we grew older, this dynamic didn't really change. My parents always seemed more proud of his achievements and more forgiving of his mistakes. Fast forward to college, I started to distance myself from my family a bit. I went through some mental health struggles, and my brother mocked my anxiety when I confided in him. He didn't do it in a cruel way necessarily, but it came across as dismissive and humiliating. I remember one instance clearly. I had been admitted to the hospital for severe anxiety, and he posted a picture online joking about how dramatic I was being. Our parents didn't really intervene, which cemented my feeling that my experiences didn't matter. After college, I moved to a different city and started my own life. I have a stable job, a good circle of friends, and I'm generally happy, but I still have moments of hurt regarding my family. My younger sister, on the other hand, has always been closer to my parents and to my brother. This has caused some tension because I feel like she's often siding with them without acknowledging my perspective. Now, on to the wedding. My brother announced he was engaged about a year ago. At first, I felt happy for him. I tried to be genuinely supportive. But over time, it became clear that my presence at the wedding was not going to be welcomed in the way I expected. The wedding is small, less than 50 guests, mostly family. When I asked my brother if I could bring a plus one, he said no, because the venue is really small and we have to keep it intimate. I understood that, but I also know that my younger sister and several of our cousins are bringing dates. When I pointed that out, he said they were exceptions. Things got worse when I realized my family was excluding me from wedding-related events. They had a bridal shower for my sister-in-law that I wasn't invited to, even though my sister, who lives in another state, was invited. They held a rehearsal dinner without telling me, and I only found out through a cousin. I tried to brush it off at first, thinking maybe it was just oversight, but it felt like a pattern. A few weeks ago, I received the official wedding invitation in the mail. My name was on it, but there was no plus one, and the invitation was handwritten in a way that didn't feel personal, just a standard card in an envelope with my name. My brother also sent me a text saying he hoped I could make it, which felt half-hearted considering the family drama that had been brewing. I tried to talk to my brother about it. I told him that I felt hurt about being excluded from the bridal shower and rehearsal dinner and asked if there was any chance of making adjustments for me. He responded with a long message, essentially saying he was really busy with planning and that everything is final. He also said that the family had decided together that this is how it has to be. I felt like my concerns were dismissed again, and that familiar feeling of invisibility resurfaced. After a lot of thinking, I decided I couldn't go. I felt that attending under those circumstances would be more painful than enjoyable. I didn't want to be at a celebration where I felt deliberately sidelined and undervalued. I sent my brother a message explaining my decision. I told him I loved him, but I couldn't attend, and I hoped he could understand why. I also said I'd be happy to celebrate with him at another time outside the wedding. His reaction was immediate and intense. He called me, yelling and accusing me of making everything about yourself and ruining the family's special day. He said that my refusal was selfish and that I was choosing to punish the family over trivial feelings. My mom also called and tried to guilt me, saying that my absence would hurt the entire family and that I was being dramatic. My sister texted me saying she was disappointed and that I was letting everyone down. I stuck to my decision, and now there's a lot of tension. My brother has stopped talking to me, and my parents are clearly upset. Some extended family members have reached out, saying they think I should reconsider for the sake of appearances, but others have privately admitted they understand my perspective. I'm torn. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting and being unnecessarily stubborn. Another part feels that this is a recurring pattern with my family. They consistently disregard my feelings and prioritize appearances over genuine care. I don't want to spend my brother's wedding feeling invisible or resentful. I've considered the possibility of attending just to keep peace, but I'm worried I'd only end up resenting everyone and creating more distance. So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding, given the way my family has treated me over the years and their recent exclusionary behavior. I want to do what's healthy for me, but I also don't want to be unfair or hurtful unnecessarily. I'm curious how strangers would weigh years of family tension against a single family event. Is standing up for my own mental health wrong in this situation, or should I put my feelings aside for the sake of family unity? AITA for refusing to give my cousin money to bail her out of debt, which led to a huge family argument. I, 33F, have a cousin, Vanessa, 31F, who has always had serious money management issues. Growing up, our families were very close, and we've always spent a lot of time together. Vanessa has a history of impulsive spending, borrowing money without repaying, and taking financial risks that rarely pay off. I've tried to help her over the years by offering budgeting advice and connecting her with financial resources, but she tends to ignore guidance unless there's immediate personal benefit. A few months ago, Vanessa called me in a panic. She had accrued thousands in credit card debt, missed rent, and had overdue bills on top of that. She claimed her landlord was threatening eviction and utilities were about to be shut off. She asked if I could lend her $10,000 to cover everything and promised she would pay me back as soon as possible. She presented it as an emergency and said, that if I didn't help, she would be homeless. I was conflicted because I care about Vanessa, but I also know that giving her such a large sum without a concrete plan would almost certainly lead to more financial trouble. I asked her for a detailed breakdown of her finances and a repayment plan. She gave vague answers and refused to provide a realistic timeline, saying that she was too stressed to do that right now. I suggested she meet with a financial counselor or consider negotiating with her creditors, but she insisted that none of those options would work and that I was her only hope. I told Vanessa I could not lend her $10,000 without a solid plan. I explained that lending her money under the current circumstances would not solve the underlying problems and could even make things worse if she was unable to repay me. I offered to help her negotiate with creditors, create a budget, and explore government or community resources for assistance. Vanessa became very upset. She started crying and accused me of being selfish, uncaring, and treating her like a child. She said that family should step up in emergencies and that I was betraying her. Vanessa then called our parents. They immediately sided with her, saying I should give her the money to avoid her being evicted. My parents argued that I had a moral obligation to help family in need and that I was being unnecessarily rigid. I explained that I was willing to help in ways that could actually stabilize her situation long term, but giving her money without conditions would likely perpetuate the cycle of debt and financial irresponsibility. They accused me of being heartless and not understanding Vanessa's struggles. The argument escalated quickly. Vanessa accused me of enjoying having control over her finances and trying to humiliate her. My parents echoed some of these sentiments, suggesting that I was prioritizing my own comfort over her well-being. Extended family members also became involved, with some saying I should just give her the money and stop overcomplicating things, while others agreed with me that financial enablement would be harmful. Vanessa's situation eventually stabilized somewhat because she found a friend willing to lend her a smaller sum, but our family's dynamics have been strained ever since. She still sends passive-aggressive messages implying that I don't care about her, and some relatives continue to bring up the incident as evidence that I am cold or unsympathetic. I genuinely tried to balance empathy with responsibility, but my intentions have been misinterpreted as cruelty. I've considered whether I could have approached this differently. I thought about giving her a smaller loan or splitting the money into installments contingent on her providing proof of responsible spending, but she refused all compromise. I also considered involving a professional financial advisor to mediate, but Vanessa rejected the idea, claiming she didn't want another lecture. The fallout has affected family gatherings. Holidays and birthdays are tense because the topic inevitably comes up, and I feel that some relatives quietly judge me for my refusal. Vanessa and I are still in contact, but our relationship is strained. I want to maintain a bond, but I cannot ignore the risk of enabling her financial behavior. I've reflected a lot on this. I feel confident that I acted responsibly and with long-term thinking in mind, but I also recognize the emotional impact of my refusal on Vanessa and our family. My relationship with her is strained, my parents are disappointed, and some relatives are frustrated with me. I want to be supportive, but I also need to protect my finances and ensure that any help I provide actually helps rather than harms. So, AITA for refusing to lend my cousin $10,000 to cover her debts, even though it caused a massive family conflict and made her and other relatives accuse me of being selfish and uncaring. AITA for refusing to let my sister involve my kids in her family business and facing backlash from my whole extended family. I, 38F, have always tried to maintain a clear boundary between my professional and personal life. I work in finance, and my husband, 40M, runs a small architectural firm, so both of us have pretty structured lives, and we've been careful about protecting our family time. We have 2 kids, Ethan, 9, and Clara, 6. We homeschool them because we wanted to focus on a more hands-on and flexible education, and honestly, it's worked really well for us. My sister, Lisa, 35F, on the other hand, has always been a bit unconventional. She owns a small family experience business, which she markets as a kind of blended daycare/creative project company where kids help produce seasonal crafts and sell them at local markets. Think arts and crafts meets mini entrepreneurial experience. Her pitch to clients is that children learn responsibility and business sense by earning and creating, but in reality, it often comes across as using children as unpaid labor while parents pay for the experience. Lisa has always been very charming about it and makes it sound like a wholesome opportunity, but the moment I met the people she had employed through these programs, I realized a lot of parents weren't fully aware of how much work the kids were doing versus how much profit the business was making. A few months ago, Lisa reached out to me on a weekend call and asked if Ethan and Clara could participate in one of her new seasonal projects. She described it as a fun, educational mini-market experience, emphasizing that they would get to create, sell, and learn the ropes of running a tiny business, which sounded nice on the surface. I asked a few questions about time commitment and payment, and she said it would be a few hours a week, during which the kids would help with creative tasks and learn valuable skills, but she avoided answering directly when I asked if any money from the sales would go to them. I pressed, and eventually she said, well, they might earn a little if things sell, but the real value is the experience. That sounded a lot like unpaid work, and I got a sinking feeling in my stomach. My kids are still young, and I want them to enjoy childhood, not feel pressured into a business-like environment. I told her no. I said we appreciate her thinking of them, but we want them to spend their time on school, hobbies, and family activities rather than work projects that might profit someone else. She was polite at first, but then started sending me increasingly guilt-laden messages. She mentioned how other kids are learning so much from this, and subtly suggested that Ethan and Clara might feel left out if they didn't participate. I didn't respond immediately because I was uncomfortable with the tone, but when I did, I reiterated our decision. I also added that if we ever agreed to something like that, it would need to be fully transparent, age-appropriate, and have proper compensation for their labor. The next part is where things escalated. Lisa, apparently, had already started telling our extended family about her plans. At our last family reunion, she openly expressed disappointment in front of everyone, saying that I wasn't supporting the kids' growth opportunities and that they could be learning skills to make them future entrepreneurs. She framed it as if I was depriving them of experiences that were beneficial. Suddenly, other relatives chimed in. My mother said, "It's just a few hours. Why deny them the chance to learn?" And my brother suggested that I was overprotective and rigid, and that kids need exposure to challenges like this. Even some of Lisa's friends who are family acquaintances said things like, "You're making childhood boring for them." I tried to explain that homeschooling, creative projects at home, and extracurricular activities already give them ample learning opportunities, and that forcing them into an unpaid business environment at that age doesn't align with our values. I emphasize that I'm not anti-learning or anti-responsibility, but that childhood shouldn't be monetized this way. My husband backed me up privately, saying he supports our approach and agrees that the pressure to perform for profit isn't appropriate for our kids. Despite this, Lisa escalated further. She posted a long, somewhat passive-aggressive Facebook post about parents who undervalue opportunities for their children, with a picture of her kids' market stand. She included some of our cousins' kids who were participating. Several relatives commented, praising her for offering amazing experiences and subtly criticizing me. My mother called me privately to say, "You need to reconsider. You're making waves, and it's causing tension in the family. Sometimes you have to compromise for the kids." I try to stay calm, explaining that compromise doesn't mean forcing my children into something I'm not comfortable with. The tension reached a breaking point last weekend. Lisa invited herself over unannounced and brought some supplies for a mini craft session with Ethan and Clara. She assumed they would participate. I told her firmly, in front of the kids, that this was not going to happen, and she started making comments about how I ruined the fun for everyone and was so controlling. Ethan and Clara looked confused and slightly distressed because they know their aunt likes to spend time with them, and now they were witnessing this argument. Lisa left angrily, and my mother called later that evening, saying she expected me to handle it differently and that I was escalating the problem instead of being diplomatic. I feel caught between protecting my kids and maintaining peace with my family. I don't want Ethan and Clara exposed to pressure to work in an environment that benefits someone else, but I also feel like I'm being painted as the villain. Lisa continues to post about how parents should let their kids experience the real world, and our relatives occasionally make comments when we visit, implying we are too strict. My husband wants to stay out of this as much as possible to avoid further conflict, but I'm tired of being criticized for a parenting decision I firmly believe in. So, AITA here for refusing to let my sister involve my kids in her business and standing my ground despite the family backlash. I feel like I'm protecting my kids, but the constant family pressure and public posts make me question if I'm overreacting. I've thought about trying to compromise, but any compromise seems like it would require me to let my kids work for someone else's profit and age when they should just be learning and playing. Has anyone else faced family pressure like this while trying to protect their kids' boundaries? How do you maintain family relationships without compromising your parenting principles? AITA, so this is going to be a long one, but I need some perspective because I feel like I might be the asshole here, but others are saying I'm in the right. My name is Alex. I'm 32, and I've always been the type of person who tries to keep everything fair and balanced in my life, sometimes to the point of obsessing over it. I live in a mid-sized city, I have a steady job in marketing, and I've been with my girlfriend, Melissa, for 4 years. We live together, and things are mostly great, but the past few months have been a bit rocky due to a family situation. Melissa's family is very tight-knit and extremely traditional. Her parents live nearby, and she has 2 younger siblings who are both married with kids. I, on the other hand, come from a very fragmented family. My parents divorced when I was young, and I have one older brother who moved overseas a decade ago. Holidays and family events have always been tricky for me because there isn't much of a family unit to plan around. That said, I've learned to navigate these events without causing too much drama. Here's where it gets complicated. Melissa's mother, Diane, recently suffered a major health scare and has been recovering from surgery. During this time, Melissa has been very involved with her family, helping out with meals, doctor's appointments, and household chores. Naturally, this left me somewhat sidelined because I was still working full-time and trying to help in small ways where I could. About a month ago, Melissa suggested that we host a small family gathering for Diane's birthday. The idea was to have close relatives over, celebrate her recovery, and just have a cozy evening. I was on board because I love her mom, and I thought it would be nice to show support. As we started planning, I noticed something that didn't sit right with me. Melissa wanted to invite several distant relatives and friends who she thought her mom would appreciate, but I also found out that some of these guests had a history of being rather rude or judgmental toward me in previous gatherings. I didn't want to start any conflict, but I also didn't want to feel uncomfortable in my own home on a day that was supposed to be about celebration. I brought it up, gently, suggesting we limit the guest list to people we were all comfortable with, particularly those who had shown kindness toward Diane during her recovery. Melissa seemed annoyed, but said she'd think about it. Fast forward a few days, she comes back with a full list of 20 people, including a cousin who I barely know and who, frankly, made me feel unwelcome at her last family barbecue. I tried to negotiate, suggesting that maybe we could make it a smaller gathering, but Melissa said that it would be wrong to exclude anyone because it's Diane's birthday and everyone should be invited. I felt stuck because I didn't want to cause tension between Melissa and her family, but I also felt my boundaries were being ignored. The day of the party, I spent hours cleaning, cooking, and decorating. I even tried to make some extra dishes I knew Diane would love, trying to contribute positively. Once the guests arrived, I immediately felt the tension I had anticipated. Some of the distant relatives were passive-aggressive, making little jabs about my career, my hobbies, and my supposedly too casual lifestyle compared to Melissa's family. I tried to ignore it at first, but one comment in particular really set me off. A cousin named Laura said, "It must be nice to have so much free time since you don't have a real career like some of us." I had been working late hours all week, so I felt completely blindsided and humiliated. I decided to speak up, and I did so in a calm but firm way. I said, "I've been working just as hard as everyone here, and I don't appreciate comments that belittle my efforts." Laura laughed awkwardly, and some of the other relatives tried to defend me, while others just brushed it off. The room became tense, and Melissa pulled me aside, saying I had ruined the mood and that I was overreacting. I told her that I wasn't overreacting, I was standing up for myself and trying to maintain respect in the room. Diane, meanwhile, seemed uncomfortable but didn't intervene. After the party, Melissa and I got into a huge argument. She said I embarrassed her family and that I should have just smiled and let the comment slide. I said that it's not fair to ask me to tolerate disrespect, even in the name of keeping the peace. She accused me of being controlling and selfish, claiming that I dictated who should be invited and that I broke the harmony of the celebration. I reminded her that my only request was to protect my dignity and make sure the gathering was pleasant for everyone. She said I was prioritizing my comfort over her mother's happiness. The argument escalated, and for a few days, we didn't speak much. Diane eventually called me, seemingly to mediate, but ended up saying she thought I overreacted and that family events are meant to be forgiving. She didn't directly criticize me, but her words definitely felt like a rebuke. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells every time Melissa's family is around now, and it's causing a lot of stress. My friends and coworkers have mostly sided with me, saying that it's okay to set boundaries and that I handled the situation reasonably. Melissa's friends, on the other hand, think I was too rigid and should have bit my tongue to avoid making her family uncomfortable. I'm torn because I genuinely want to support Melissa and her family, but I also don't want to sacrifice my self-respect or feel invisible in situations that involve me too. So, Reddit AITA for speaking up at Diane's birthday party and wanted to limit the guest list to people who were respectful and considerate? Or should I have swallowed my pride and kept the peace, even if it meant tolerating passive-aggressive remarks and being made to feel unwelcome? I feel like I'm in a no-win situation and am struggling to figure out what's reasonable in terms of boundaries versus family harmony. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister's fiancé take over my wedding plans? I, 32F, have always been the type of person who likes to be in control of my own life, particularly big events. So when I got engaged to my fiancé, Tom, 34M, about 8 months ago, I knew from the start that I wanted our wedding to reflect us, not anyone else's vision of what a perfect day should be. I have a younger sister, Jenna, 28F, who has always been very involved in my life, and I love her, but she has a tendency to be very controlling and insistent on her opinions. Tom and I were excited to start planning, but I didn't anticipate that her fiancé, Mark, 30M, would become a central issue. Initially, things were fine. Jenna offered to help me look at venues, and we had a few laughs touring some options together. I mentioned that we wanted something small, intimate, with a modern and slightly minimalist aesthetic, and she seemed supportive. But about 2 months into planning, she and Mark started visiting more frequently, ostensibly to help. This included showing up unannounced to check the progress of venue selections, sending long messages about floral arrangements and catering menus, and even suggesting we should change the date to fit their schedule. At first, I tried to brush it off. I figured they were excited and just wanted to be involved. But it started to escalate. Mark, who has never shown much interest in weddings or event planning before, suddenly became the self-appointed wedding coordinator. He began sending me articles about table layouts, color schemes, and even guest seating charts, insisting that he had professional experience with events because he once helped a friend organize a birthday party. He started criticizing the venues we liked, telling me they were not photogenic enough or too small for a guest list that isn't even finalized yet. Tom tried to mediate and suggested that we politely thank them for their input, but ultimately make our own decisions. I agreed, but every time we made a choice without Mark's input, Jenna would guilt-trip me, saying things like, "He's just trying to help because he wants the day to be perfect for you," or, "I'm sorry you're being so stubborn. He's really good at planning these things." Things came to a head last week. We had selected our venue and catering, and I had finalized the guest list. I felt relieved and ready to move on to other aspects of the wedding, like outfits and music. That's when Mark called me out of the blue, furious that I hadn't consulted him about the table placements and decor style. He claimed that the seating arrangements would cause unnecessary tension because of how family dynamics would play out and that our color palette was all wrong. I calmly explained that Tom and I had made these choices together and appreciated his input, but the final decisions were ours. He started raising his voice and said I was being unreasonable and should consider how this affects the whole family, implying that the wedding wouldn't be enjoyable for anyone if we didn't follow his advice. Jenna called me later, crying, saying that I was being selfish and that Mark was just looking out for me. She asked me to let him handle the remaining planning so I could enjoy the process without stress. I told her no, firmly, because I wanted to maintain control over my own wedding. I reminded her that while I appreciated her and Mark's willingness to help, this was our day, and Tom and I had the right to make our own choices. Since then, Jenna has been giving me the silent treatment, and Mark has blocked me on social media. Several family members have started asking me why I'm being so difficult and not letting people help, and I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for simply wanting to have a wedding that reflects mine and Tom's tastes. Tom supports me 100%, but even he is stressed because he wants the family drama to stop before the wedding. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister, but I also feel strongly that letting Mark take over, even partially, would completely compromise what Tom and I envisioned. Some friends have told me that I might be overreacting, but others say that setting boundaries is important. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé take control of my wedding planning. Update. Some people might assume that I've been cold or ungrateful, but I've been trying to express appreciation for their help while keeping final decisions in my hands. The tension has escalated to the point where I'm worried it might affect the wedding itself, which is only a few months away. I've considered offering Mark a small role, like handling favors or music suggestions, but I'm afraid even that might lead him to feel entitled to more control. I want the day to be about me and Tom, not about avoiding conflict. I'm sharing this here because I genuinely want to know if I'm being unreasonable or if I'm right to assert boundaries on what should be my wedding. I don't want this situation to create a permanent rift, but I also don't want to compromise my own happiness on a day that's supposed to celebrate my relationship. AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me after she lost her job, which caused a massive family fight. I, 39F, have a younger sister, Emily, 31F, who has always been impulsive and somewhat irresponsible with finances and life decisions. She has had a history of moving between apartments, quitting jobs without planning, and borrowing money without repaying it. I love her, and we've been close for most of our lives, but over the years, I've learned that she often makes decisions without thinking through the consequences. Recently, Emily lost her job unexpectedly. She called me in a panic, saying she couldn't pay rent for her apartment and was about to be evicted. She asked if she could move in with me, saying it would only be temporary until she got back on her feet. My husband, Michael, 41M, and I have 2 kids, ages 9 and 6, and our household is very structured. We rely heavily on routines for the kids, and our family dynamic is generally calm and predictable. I immediately felt uneasy about the idea of Emily moving in, knowing how disruptive it could be. I told Emily that I couldn't let her move in permanently, but I offered alternatives. I could help her find a short-term rental, pay for a few nights at a hotel if she needed a safe place immediately, help with groceries, and assist with job applications. I even suggested that she stay with a close friend of hers who had offered temporary help in the past. Emily was frustrated and insisted that moving in with me was the only viable solution. The situation escalated when Emily called our parents. They immediately took her side, saying that I should let her stay and that my refusal was cruel. I explained that I was trying to help in practical ways that would not disrupt my household or affect my children's routines. I also explained that I had concerns based on past experiences. Whenever Emily has stayed for an extended period, she often ignores boundaries, causes conflict, and struggles with daily responsibilities. Our parents accused me of being heartless and said that family loyalty meant stepping up in times of crisis. Emily then sent a text message demanding that I do the right thing and let her move in. She argued that I had the means to help and that refusing her was selfish. I replied that my refusal was not about being selfish, but about maintaining the stability of my household and protecting my children from unnecessary stress. She interpreted this as me trying to control her life and began accusing me of favoritism, claiming that I cared more about my own family than hers. The argument reached a breaking point during a family gathering. Emily confronted me in front of several relatives, saying that I was cold, uncaring, and manipulative. She claimed that I was deliberately making her situation worse, and that I was punishing her for losing her job. Our parents joined in, saying that I was being inflexible and should prioritize family over convenience. Other relatives tried to mediate, but Emily was insistent that I was morally obligated to let her live with me, at least temporarily. I tried to remain calm and reiterated my offer to help in ways that did not involve her moving in. Financial support for a short-term rental, assistance with job applications, and logistical support while she got back on her feet. Emily refused these options, claiming that they were insufficient and that I was deliberately trying to humiliate her. She left the gathering angrily, and our parents continued to express disappointment in me for days afterward. Since then, family dynamics have been tense. Emily avoids direct contact with me except through texts, which are often passive-aggressive. Our parents continue to express frustration, saying that I should have compromised for the sake of family unity. Some relatives support me, understanding that allowing Emily to move in could create significant stress and disruption in my household. Others criticize me, saying I should have been more compassionate and flexible. I have reflected on whether I could have approached the situation differently. I considered letting her stay for a night or two while she made arrangements, but I knew from experience that even a short-term stay could extend indefinitely if she was allowed in. I also considered offering more financial help, but she rejected offers that required boundaries or conditions. My priority has been to protect my children's routines, my husband's peace of mind, and my own household stability. I feel conflicted because I want to support my sister, but I also cannot compromise the safety, stability, and mental well-being of my family. I tried repeatedly to offer constructive and practical assistance that would help Emily without causing disruption, but all my offers were rejected. The family conflict has strained relationships, and holidays and gatherings are tense because of lingering resentment. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with my family after losing her job, even though it caused a massive family fight, upset our parents, and strained my relationship with her. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a secret she's keeping from our family. I, 32F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emma, 28F. Growing up, we were inseparable, despite our differences in personality. I am more of a cautious, organized type, while Emma has always been spontaneous and a bit of a thrill seeker. Our parents are divorced, but on decent terms, and we see them regularly. Over the years, I've often felt like I am the responsible sister, and Emma has always been the fun one. Recently, Emma got engaged to her boyfriend, Alex, 30M. From what I know, he's charming and ambitious, but he has a bit of a reputation for being somewhat controlling in past relationships. When Emma told me about the engagement, I was happy for her, though I had some gut feelings I couldn't quite articulate. She started planning her wedding, and I was thrilled to be a part of it. She asked me to be her maid of honor, and I accepted without hesitation. About a month ago, while helping Emma with wedding arrangements, I accidentally stumbled upon something on her phone. She had left it unlocked on the counter while running into the kitchen. There were a series of messages from Alex that were unsettling. He had been pressuring Emma to keep certain things from the family, specifically about financial matters and personal decisions regarding a joint business venture he was planning. He insisted that Emma not tell anyone about his past legal disputes, which included a minor fraud charge that he had settled a few years back. I didn't confront Emma immediately because I knew she might feel cornered. I tried to bring up the topic subtly, but every time I did, she would brush it off, saying that Alex had changed and that I shouldn't judge him based on his past. I kept reading the messages, and it became clear that Alex had a habit of manipulating situations to his advantage. He had told Emma that their family would never approve if they knew the truth, and that it would be better to just keep things quiet until after the wedding. 2 weeks ago, I confronted Emma in private. I told her I knew about Alex's past legal issues and that I was concerned about her being manipulated. She got defensive and yelled at me, saying that I was overreacting, that she trusted Alex, and that I had no right to interfere. I tried to reason with her, saying that my concern came from a place of love, not judgment. She responded by saying that if I cared so much, I could make my own decisions about whether I wanted to be involved in her wedding. That night, I couldn't sleep. I felt conflicted because I love my sister and I want her to be happy. But I also felt strongly that attending her wedding, while knowing she was hiding significant information from our family, made me complicit in the deception. I spent several days thinking about what to do. Finally, I made a decision. I wrote Emma a message explaining that I couldn't be part of the wedding or attend it because I couldn't support a celebration built on secrecy. I told her I still loved her and that I hoped she would be happy, but that I couldn't compromise my values. She called me immediately furious. She said that I was being dramatic, controlling, and selfish. She accused me of trying to sabotage her relationship and said that our parents were disappointed in me as well. I spoke to my parents about the situation. They were upset, but tried to remain neutral. My mom said she understood my concerns, but didn't want to get involved in family drama right before the wedding. My dad was quieter, but seemed disappointed that I would refuse to attend. Emma's fiancé, Alex, called me once and told me that I was being unreasonable and that he had changed, and that I was trying to turn my sister against him. The fallout has been worse than I imagined. Extended family members are taking sides, and I've received texts from cousins and friends calling me harsh and judgmental. Emma is ignoring me, and the last I heard, she is planning the wedding without me. Some of my friends say I did the right thing by standing up for my principles, while others say I overstepped and that my sister had a right to make her own choices, even if I disagree. I've been reflecting on whether I handled this the right way. Part of me feels like I'm protecting my sister from making a mistake, but another part of me wonders if I should have just let her live her life and been supportive, even if it meant turning a blind eye to Alex's past and his manipulative tendencies. I'm still in contact with a few close friends who advise me to distance myself from my own mental health. Emma has stopped speaking to me entirely, and my parents are trying not to take sides openly. The tension at family gatherings is palpable. I dread the holiday season coming up because it feels like a powder keg waiting to explode. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she is keeping secrets about her fiancé from the family. I know that some people might say I am being controlling or judgmental, but I also feel like attending would mean condoning dishonesty and manipulation. I don't know if there is a right way to handle this, and I'm struggling with the idea that my relationship with Emma might never fully recover. I just want to know if I cross a line by prioritizing my principles over my sister's big day. I've always thought that family should come first, but I also feel that family should be honest and open with each other. This situation has left me questioning everything about loyalty, love, and boundaries. I haven't spoken to Emma since my decision, and I don't know if she will ever forgive me. The wedding is in 2 weeks, and I'm preparing myself for backlash. I'm terrified that our relationship could be permanently damaged. AITA, thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.